People will definitely be talking about how Kamala Harris lost to Donald Trump for years to come. But I think the most plausible explanation is that people just weren't feeling great about their economic outlook. And that might come as a surprise to many of you because, as you know, the American economy is the envy of the world right now. The Biden and Harris administration put on a masterclass of bringing us through and out of the COVID-19 pandemic. And the Fed Chair Jerome Powell put on a masterclass of bringing inflation back in line with our targets. So we have all of these economic indicators that show us the American economy is doing great, but yet so many Americans felt that that just wasn't the case. And so I think we need to start to analyze how people are getting these wildly different feelings than what is actually taking place in reality. And I think some of the blame needs to be put on conservative media because there has been a concerted effort to establish a completely separate reality from the one that we are currently living here on Earth. Fox News and others have spent months or years telling people that the economy is bad, that inflation is out of control, that immigrants are taking everybody's jobs, and the list goes on. So when I saw this Ipsos data that looked at how different information systems impacted the way that Americans felt about any given issue, I was definitely not surprised. So let's go ahead and look at this first graph here, where they asked, in your opinion, what is the most important problem facing the United States today? A pretty straightforward question. And they gave them three options. You've got the economy, unemployment, and jobs, immigration, and then political extremism or threats to democracy. And you'll notice that the first news source listed there is Fox or other conservative outlets, and they way over-index on immigration. And then if you go all the way down to the bottom of the chart, you've got cable and national newspapers. They way over-index on political extremism and threats to democracy. And I don't think that should come as a surprise to anybody. Fox News spends much of the day talking about how so many illegal immigrants are crossing the border and they're taking your jobs and they're wreaking havoc on Americans. And cable and national newspapers have been talking a lot about the existential threat that Donald Trump poses to our democracy. So it is not surprising at all that these particular Americans would feel vastly different about what is important based on the news that they're actually consuming. And this is something that we have to reckon with because the right-wing media ecosystem is a well-oiled machine at this point, and they have effectively created an alternative reality for MAGA and other conservatives to live in. They are not contending with the actual facts that are in this world today. And if we look at the second graph, it says Fox News conservative media viewers are less likely to answer questions about inflation, immigration, and crime correctly. And we know exactly why this should be the case. Because even during the presidential debate, Donald Trump said crime is out of control, even though crime has been on a downward trajectory for quite some time under the Biden administration. And we know that inflation has also been plummeting during the Biden administration. So when we look at the questions that were posed to these viewers, let's start with the first one. Over the last few years, unauthorized border crossings at the U.S.-Mexico border are at or near the highest level in decades. The correct answer to that is true. That is true. After COVID-19, we saw a huge spike in border crossings and whatnot down at the southern border. And this is the only one that Fox or conservative media viewers got right. They answered true almost 100% of the time. But if we go to the second question, I do want to say this also cuts both ways, because you've got all respondents coming in at just over half, which is decent. But if you look at people getting their news from cable or national news, that's only about 50%. That number should be higher. Like, we should be presenting factual information no matter what news source you are going to. And then for social media or other, it's closer to 40%, which is worst of them all. The answer is true, so we should be indexing at 90 to 100% of people that know that is true, in my opinion. But let's go ahead and look at the second question. The U.S. stock market is at or near all-time highs. This is also true. But if you look at conservative media and Fox News viewers, they are less than 50% that believe that. And even worse than them is people who get their news on social media and or other places like X, formerly known as Twitter. These people definitely don't believe that the stock market is at all-time or near all-time highs. That is a problem. People who view cable or national newspapers, they're much better, probably at around 70 to 75%, but I would still hope that that would be a little bit higher. Let's go down to the next question. FEMA has been withholding aid from disaster areas impacted by Hurricane Helene and Milton. That's false. But if you look at Fox and conservative news viewers, only 19% of people got that answer correct? That is a huge problem. And we know exactly why this happens, because Fox News pundits have been spending their time saying that FEMA is nowhere to be found, or that they're going to take over your assets if you let them help you, and crazy conspiracies like that. And you'll see that people who are viewing cable or national newspapers, they do much better. Not great, but much better. They're near 80%. If we look at the next question, violent crime rates are at or near all-time highs in most major American cities. This is false. Crime has been plummeting in the last year or two under the Biden administration. But if you look at Fox News and conservative news viewers, only about 8 to 9 to 10% believe or got that answer correct? That is insane. These people are living in a whole different reality than the one that currently exists. And if you look at cable and national newspapers, again, they're doing much better at around 70%, but that should still be higher. Or at least we could hope it to be higher, right? If we go down to the next question, inflation in the U.S. has declined over the last year and is near historic averages. That is true. It is definitely true. Our inflation rate right now is about 2.1%, but Fox News and conservative news viewers only got that right about 16 or 17% of the time? They are living in a different reality bubble than we are. People who are consuming cable news and national newspapers did a little bit better at probably 65 or so percent? And we'll go on to the last one. Over the last few months, unauthorized border crossings at the U.S.-Mexico border are at or near the lowest level in the last few years. This is definitely true. Ever since the Biden administration implemented that executive order, border crossings have been plummeting. They have been cut in more than half. Okay? But you'll notice that people on social media are only answering that right about 15% of the time or 10% of the time. Fox News and other conservative media viewers are only getting that right about 16 or 17% of the time. If that, maybe 15. And then people that are viewing cable news or national newspapers like the New York Times, the Washington Post, and places like that, they are doing much better for this particular question at a little bit more than 60%. So I think this is a huge issue. And while conservative media spends so much time criticizing liberal mainstream news, it's their readers or their viewers that are coming away with the factual reality of our world, where you've got people consuming Fox News or other conservative news outlets that are super under-indexing on what is actually true. And that has major implications when people go to vote. If they believe that crime is way out of control, illegal immigration is way out of control, or that inflation is still sky high, of course that might nudge them to vote for the other guy, right? So I think this is a major issue that we have to contend with, especially with us left of center media apparatus. We have to build something that can rival the Fox Newses of the world. We have to get better information out to more people, or else we're going to continue to feel the impacts of this misinformation and disinformation at the ballot box. Let's go ahead and look at this third chart. Conservative media consumers less likely to say they have seen grocery, gasoline costs go down in the last 3 months. I just paid less than $3 a gallon for gas a day ago. Gas prices are the lowest they've been in years. But if we look at the Fox News, conservative news viewership, you can say that 54% of them answered that it was had to delay making a purchase because you didn't have the money. 36% of them answered that they have to go into debt or use retirement savings to make ends meet. And if they are talking about grocery prices and gasoline prices going down, they are least likely to answer that that is true. At only 9%. Gas prices are definitely going down, and even some grocery prices are going down. So it is a huge problem that Fox News viewers and other conservative media outlet viewers aren't seeing that or aren't believing that. I don't know which one it is. And then for the last question, it says, been unable to pay a bill on time. 30% of Fox News viewers and conservative news outlet viewers answer yes. And 30% of social media news consumers are also answering yes on that. So these are just some examples of how Fox News and other conservative news outlets are spinning up different realities for their viewers. And if we want to see how this actually plays out at the ballot box, let's go ahead and look at this last chart here. Misinformed views on immigration, crime, and the economy correlated with ballot choice, okay? This is huge. Violent crime rates are at or near all-time highs in most major American cities. That is a false statement, but Republicans are plus 26, saying that that is not correct, while Democrats are plus 65, saying that that is correct. That is a wild disparity here. The next question. Inflation in the U.S. has declined over the last year and is near historic averages. This is true. Like I said, 2.1%. Republicans, plus 19, say that that is false. Democrats, plus 53, say that is true. The next question. The U.S. stock market is at or near all-time highs. This is also true. Plus 9 Republican say that that is not true. Plus 20 Democrats say that that is true. Okay? And here's another wild swing. Over the last few months, unauthorized border crossings at the U.S.-Mexico border are at or near the lowest level in the last few years. This again is true. But Republicans said plus 17 that that is not true. Democrats, on the other hand, seem to be more informed and say that that is true at plus 59. These are crazy disparities in our different information environments. The left or left of center people do not compare or cannot rival the right-wing media ecosystem as it currently stands. That is why we have to build something that can compete with these people, because they are winning the information war by flooding the zone with misinformation and disinformation. And they are giving people a wildly different understanding of the world than what actually exists. And that is a huge problem. We've talked about this quite a bit, how these echo chambers are getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and as they get smaller, it is less likely for a conservative voter or a conservative person to pop outside of that bubble because they just want to feel reinforced by their own worldview. And that goes both ways. That goes for liberals as well. But I think this is a huge problem as it pertains to elections. As we can see here, Republicans are answering these questions in the incorrect way more often, which means they have a wildly different understanding of the world that is incorrect than Democrats on average. So I thought that this data was really quite interesting. It goes to show you that the misinformation and the disinformation is definitely working to compel these people to vote in different ways than you might expect them to. It definitely proves to us that these alternate versions of reality are playing a major role in our elections. And so us left of center creators have to come together and build an apparatus that can combat the right-wing media ecosystem. We have to push back against this misinformation and disinformation. I think our democracy literally depends on it. Disinformation has been so effective, especially in this past election, and they will continue to double down on this strategy if it is working for them. And so we need to be aware of it, we need to call it out, and we need to build something that is based on fact to counter all of this nonsense. But I'll leave it there. If you guys got anything out of this video, please remember to smash that like button and subscribe. Maybe share it with a friend or two. I'd very much appreciate that. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year, and I would very much appreciate your support. If you want to see Kamala Harris outclass every single MAGA Republican, go ahead and watch that video on the screen now. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next one.